Hi, and welcome to Today's Entrepreneur. I'm Janet Zapala. Thank you for joining us. Speaking of entrepreneurs, we've got the chairman of the board with us today, Steve Games. Welcome to the show, first of all. It is great to have you here.
It's my pleasure, Janet. My pleasure.
You have been described as an innovator, a motivator in residential real estate sales for over 35 years. I know it all began pretty much in... Wow, when you think about it.
I didn't realize it was that long.
It all began in 1975, right, when you got your real estate broker's license.
That's correct.
So let's go back to that time and tell us what transpired from that point.
Well, I had come back from Vietnam and I had spent 8 years there on and off over different cruises and responsibilities. And when I came home, I really wanted to find something that I'd be good at, and I didn't want to be an electronic technician. I come from a long line of engineers, and I always thought they were a little bit more reserved than I was. And so, although I had a good engineering background, I felt that it was necessary to do something that would tie into perhaps a sales ability that I had recognized early in my life.
How did you recognize that? What gave you the first
Well,
inkling?
my father gave it to me, who is a war hero and a longtime aeronautical engineer. And I had asked him one time whether or not he thought I should take a job in the Hollywood Bowl as a prom captain, or whether I should take a salesman's job. And he thought about it, as most engineers would, and he came back to me and said he'd take the prom captain job, but I should take the salesman's job.
You like that? See, he saw something in you.
And instead of making $10 a night, I drove a brand new Corvette to and from Glendale High School and made a fortune as a salesman in the Hollywood Bowl.
And you were the envy of all your fellow students, I'm sure.
I don't know if I was an envy, but I certainly was talked about. So yeah, it was quite an experience. I didn't do well in school. And in not doing well in school, I of course got the opportunity to serve my country, because in 1966, the Vietnam War was rolling, and for me it was probably the greatest thing that happened. Even in becoming an entrepreneur, it was something that taught me the discipline and the commitment that was necessary, not just to myself, because as an entrepreneur you're never alone. If you're not guiding or directing somebody, you're not winning. And so it taught me respect and leadership. And it was a tough war, and it was a tough time to be an American, but it was a great time also.
And talk about risk, the risk you took.
Well, I always like to say that the gentlemen that were being shot at were in a much more risky position than me, but in terms of a job, I had the most dangerous job in the world. I was a flight deck troubleshooter on an aircraft carrier, and I have all my parts.
Look
so
at you.
I'm very happy with that, and
good for you.
We had to keep each other alive, so it was a really amazing experience.
And I bring up risk because as an entrepreneur, of course, you have to take risks.
Well, and that's an interesting thing, because I learned about risk on the ship. I decided that I couldn't go back without any education at all. So I decided to go to the library on the ship. You work endless hours, and I went to the library and read a John Maynard Keynes book, or started to anyway. He was the father of modern economics of my time. And so I opened up the book and I looked at it, and it said, "Profit is directly proportionate to risk, John Maynard Keynes." I closed the book and I was done with economics.
That's all you needed to know.
That was it. That was it. I've built my entire life on the fact that if you can assess things, evaluate them, and then take the risk, you're probably more likely to be a success than not. If you evaluate things, assess them, and then are unwilling to take the risk, then you should be an engineer.
So there is the differentiation.
There's a position for
right
everybody.
there.
These are brilliant people that all have opportunity, but you have to do what your heart tells you. And risk for me was never as scary as it was for all the other adult members of my family, who I think are all smarter than me.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about how you started, because you were not an entrepreneur to begin with.
That's correct. I think whenever you're in sales, because you're the only one in the room when the sale is being made, you probably are an entrepreneurial spirit. But most more major sales organizations are corporations, and so I worked for a very, very large developer who was able to develop a tremendous amount in Southern California. And I would suggest for anybody becoming an entrepreneur that first working for somebody that has the money to trust you to be able to do something that is of risk is a brilliant way to go. So Mr. Watt, who was Watt Industries, and I believe he was the head of the Board of Regents of USC and a number of other things, was just a tremendous opportunity for me.
He obviously saw something in you as well and believed in you, and then you delivered big time. You sold the landing, the condominium project. It was 100% pre-sold.
Yes.
That's
in
amazing.
fact, Mr. Watt could not build it until I sold it because he was unable to get a loan at that time for the construction. The prices were very high and it didn't seem necessarily like there were comparables for it. So he asked me to pre-sell the project and I did that.
Can I ask you, at that time, how old were you?
Well, I was probably 34, 35, but I looked like I was about 18. It was a tragic age look. People would go, "What's this kid doing here?" You know, and I think you can overcome that too.
Well, speaking of tragic, though, the landing that you pre-sold ended up burning down, but that also created a huge opportunity for you.
Yeah, I think if I were to look at anything in my life that has helped me with success, it has been those challenges that come along when you just think you're on top of the world and somebody pulls the rug out from underneath you. At least for me, I have tenacity and I have staying power, and I'm always willing to get up before anybody else after the fire or after whatever's occurred and go out and do it one more time.
And you did it in 1985 when you founded Pickford Realty.
That's correct. That's correct.
So that really catapulted you, didn't it?
Well, it was slow, but it was certainly entrepreneurial. You know, we operated under the cigar box theory, which was interesting. The cigar box theory is basically you bring money in, you put it in the cigar box, you pay the bills. If there's no money in the cigar box, the business failed.
Well, that cigar box is all important for sure.
Don't need a big accounting firm.
Well, all you need is a cigar box.
That's right.
All right, Steve, so interesting, your history. We're going to talk a little bit about where you are right now as a hugely successful entrepreneur and, again, chairman of the board. We're back right after this. Hi, and welcome back to Today's Entrepreneurs. With me today is the chairman of the board of Pacific Sotheby's International Realty, Steve Games. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
And we're going to talk about Sotheby's, but first I would just want to go back a tad because how you got to Sotheby's kind of happened as a result of what you did a little bit before that. So you bought Pickford Realty, Inc. back in 1985, right?
Yeah, we founded a startup company called Pickford, and we did it because we felt that the connection to Fairbanks Ranch and Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks was a big statement in terms of high-end residential real estate. Mary Pickford had actually been the kind of unsung founder of Beverly Hills, and she had built her home in the Hollywood Hills. And
the big actress back in the what?
Back in the 20s.
In the 20s, right?
And Barrymore's, who is the biggest name perhaps in a family of
showbiz.
Actors.
Yeah.
They followed her out there and built next door to her, and then Beverly Hills then became a reality as a result of that. So it was a name we thought was expandable. I was later to find out that you have to make a decision as an entrepreneur to be comfortable with staying local, or you have to look at what kind of a name would allow you to catapult your business into a much larger market. And so when Prudential decided to come into the residential real estate business, they had not been in the residential real estate business or the real estate business at all. I thought maybe this would be the right name, that a franchise would be the way to go. And franchise would allow me to use a quality name but still remain an entrepreneur. So I convinced my partner. It was not easy. My partner's an economic wizard, and she said, paying franchise fees probably wasn't what we wanted to do. And I suggested to her that we could get much bigger and the fees wouldn't matter once we tripled or quadrupled or 100 times the volume. So
again, that's the way of an entrepreneur, the way
Yes.
an entrepreneur should think, right? Because
Yes.
you could have easily been dissuaded at that point.
yes, and she told me no. So I owned 51% of the company and she owned 49. And I made the decision not to invoke the 51-49 rule, so I talked her into making the decision based on a fortune cookie.
Tell us more.
I took her to a restaurant and we sat down on Carmel Valley Road in San Diego. And we maybe made the biggest real estate decision in history from a fortune cookie. I suggested to her that if she would open her fortune, it would tell us what we should do. And so she opened the fortune cookie, debated whether it should be mine or hers, opened her fortune cookie, and it said, with change, your horizons are limitless.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
No, I'm serious.
Oh, wow.
I'm serious. And so
was she
literally,
convinced right then and there?
She was. And, 14 years later, I told her she could have opened any fortune cookie in a restaurant.
That's just amazing.
Yeah,
That is.
yeah.
Did you plant that fortune?
So let's leave that to the entrepreneurial side of my life and just let it go.
All right, we'll let it go.
But certainly, I was clear that she was going to get the right fortune cookie.
Got it. Got it. So Prudential Real Estate was a huge move for you, a
Yeah,
great decision.
Yeah, it was a great decision, and it was not. Again, when you're an owner and an entrepreneur and you're looking at a franchise, a lot of people are afraid of that risk because it seems not to be quite as entrepreneurial. In fact, it's much more so because you then don't have to try to spend tens of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars building a brand. You get to build your company rather than the brand. And so it worked out extremely well for me.
Because it takes a long time to build a brand.
Well,
just
it
by
takes
itself.
it's impossible actually in some ways in comparison to just acquiring a brand. It's like a marketing plan already done. And so we acquired the brand and it changed our lives.
And Prudential brought you really pretty much to where you are today, right?
Well, Prudential gave us what I call a ticket. And so the brand was a ticket to be extremely successful. And the people that worked for me, the individual agents, the connection between myself and those agents and the caring and commitment that an entrepreneur can make that a corporation can't. I was able to take people around the world and do all kinds of things without restraint because it was our money. And when it's your money, if you see the grandness of the plan, then you orchestrate that plan. If you're in a corporation, too many rules, too many regulations keep you from being able to do that.
So you had the control.
Complete control.
And you also had a
You
good
have the ability to fail too, which is always something that the non-entrepreneur is going to avoid. They're going to avoid the risk.
Again, we go back to risk, which is
Always.
a huge part of an entrepreneur's life.
That's it.
You talked about people. You have to have a good eye for people, don't you? You have to. Do you use your gut when you pick people to work with?
Well,
you?
you do. You do that, but what you do is you give people opportunity, and then you wait to see who grasps that opportunity, and you have to make a decision to benefit those who try and alleviate the pressure on those who don't by letting them find a corporation to go to work for.
How many people are working for you right now?
Well, right now we're at about 350, but at our peak in the Prudential company we had about 6,000. And
total annual real estate sales was what?
I think our best year we did 34 billion in sales, which was the equivalent of about 20,000 residential real estate transactions in the most expensive marketplace in America.
Mind-boggling. We will come back in a couple of minutes to talk about where you're going from here, Steve, because I think with you the sky's the limit.
I would say.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'd agree with you.
All right, thank you.
Right.
That made it easy. So we'll come back and find out exactly where Steve Games is going from here right after this. We are back with the chairman of the board from Pacific Sotheby's International Realty, Steve Games. Again, thank you so much for being here. You have been so inspirational.
Well, thank you.
And given us such great information about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You're a hugely successful man, though, as an entrepreneur.
Well, thank you for that.
Can anyone aspire to the kind of success that you've enjoyed?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, yeah. I'm always surprised with how few people think they can, but I'm sure that many people, and they're proving it more every day. I still am absolutely convinced that there's no place in this world that the ability to become a success is as prevalent as it is here in the U.S. It's unbelievable, the opportunities today. I hear people all the time say, well, it's a tougher world, the kids are this, the kids are the best they've ever been, and they're going to create new things so far beyond our dreams that it's impossible to imagine, and they're going to do it as entrepreneurs.
And I like the way you think, because when you think that way, then the possibilities really are endless, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about your possibilities for the future. What are your plans?
Well, I'm going to stay in the real estate business. I think you clearly have to keep the main thing, and I'm particularly good with real estate people. And my job is not to sell real estate. My job is to build the best environment possible for the entrepreneurial real estate agent who can go any place they want to go. So I want to collect the best, keep the best, motivate the best, and inspire the best. And I'm doing that now with Pacific Sotheby's International Realty. And we're growing at leaps and bounds. We're growing far faster than I was ever able to build Prudential. And again, it's a similar formula. You know, if there's a great name in the world in high-end residential real estate, Sotheby's is certainly that name. It's again a franchise for me, so it gives me strength. And the Prudential is leaving the real estate market, and that name is going away. So I don't have to feel bad about competing with my past organization. So I'm in full speed ahead in terms of building what I think will be San Diego's finest residential real estate company in history. And I own the last one, so I ought to know how to do the new one and do a better model. Things have changed. There's so much more available to us based on the electronic transfer and the internet and the world itself, that we're becoming smaller, and our opportunity to become a big company is becoming better.
What about the challenges that lie ahead? Certainly the economy is still not where it needs to be, and you've obviously gone through those bumps in the road with the economy in your business. How do you handle those kinds of things?
Well, I'm perhaps the most flag-waving American that you will ever meet. Under any conditions, this is the country in which you can be a superstar. Nothing has changed in that regard. The economy goes up, the economy goes down, and the world is subject to worrying a lot about it. We need to stop worrying about it and start realizing that the business that I'm in is selling somebody their home. And no matter whether it's a first home or whether it's an extreme home like this one that we're in today, dreams never stop, and nothing is better than owning a home. And a stock certificate, when it collapses, is worthless. And a home, when the market starts to decline, is still a home. So I'm in the dream business, and I'll continue to sell dreams through any economy.
With regard to aspiring entrepreneurs, if you could give us some advice, people who are saying, wow, I mean, what Steve Games has done seems so far away from what I think I can accomplish myself. Or, you know what, I want to be better than Steve Games. Whatever it is, what kind of advice would you give people?
Well, I think I sometimes give commencement speeches at universities and colleges, and I think the important thing is to get your ticket. You know, I got out of school and went to Vietnam very early, and people say, well, look at what a success you were. Or look at Steve Jobs, or look at Bill Gates, they dropped out of Harvard. And my initial statement to people who are working hard on their education is keep working on your education. I told my daughter the other day, when you're ready to drop out of Harvard, go ahead, but get there first. You know, so I think that my road would have been easier if I had been well educated. You have to get educated at some point anyway, So why not do it in a beautiful environment rather than at night reading books by yourself? So I think number one, get educated. I think number two, look at the world as if all of it matters to you. That everything that happens in a day, read all the news, hear the good side and the bad side of life. When you're done hearing the good side and the bad side of the day, figure out how to make your day better. Don't dwell on the bad and pay particular attention to the good things that happen. Because in my business, when I go to talk to people that want to buy something or sell something, they want to hear the good news. They don't want to hear the bad news. And if we concentrate on the good news, it'll always be there. I think perhaps the last thing that has been critical in my life is that I believe that someone made a statement somewhere that most people quit just before they become a success. And I believe that if you were to look at my life, and some of it enviably, if I had just not pushed that one more time, that little bit of energy, my success would have been limited and my opportunities would have been the same.
So never quit.
Never quit.
And finally, one last question. I know you're a generous man, you give back. Tell us about that, how important it is to give back, and what's your favorite charity?
Well, for a while, my favorite charity was the Cross on the Hill, not because I'm particularly religious, but because it was a San Diego institution, and I felt strongly that it should remain, that it was representative of the servicemen that had died for America, and that it needed to be there. But I think we've contributed to all kinds of abuse issues, and both abuse of women and abuse of children, and I think that's probably what we need to do more than anything else.
Giving back is certainly very important.
Yeah,
It's
very much so.
a very big thing for all of us to be aware of and to be a part of.
Yes.
Steve Games, Chairman of the Board of Pacific Sotheby's International Realty. Thank you for your time and your great insight.
I appreciate it.
Certainly appreciate it. And thank you for watching. If you'd like more information, check out our website. And thank you for watching today's Entrepreneur.